All right, so essentially what I want to do with my computer setup, I have an entire plan laid out of all the different computers that I would kind of really want to have and why I would want to have them and really what purpose they would fill because for me space is kind of limited and I just wanted to make sure that longer term as I was getting equipment I was trying to aim for specific purposes. So at the end of the day, for me, a lot of it is fueled by nostalgia. I want to be able to run the games and software and programs that I either remember from my childhood or from when I was growing up, or I never had the chance to explore. So a lot of it is really just discovery, rediscovery, nostalgia based computer selection. And so, in order to do that, I wanted to lay out basically a timeline of specific computers that I wanted to target for specific types of experiences. And we'll get started. This is basically my timeline I'm going to show you, I'm going to fill out. To start it off, the computer I've got right now that you're seeing me using right now is my modern computer, my modern game computer that is latest and greatest. Well, maybe not the absolute latest and greatest, but it's current as of right now, 2022. So this is gonna fill in right here. So modern gaming. All right. So that's for my modern gaming machine, right? So we're gonna go ahead and there we're gonna go ahead and kind of scale back a little bit. We're gonna look at my entire childhood, what I had, what I didn't have, what I missed, and let's go back to the very beginning. So, the first range here that I really wanted to start, the oldest computers that I want to start, was basically the late 70s, early to mid 80s. So let me go ahead and on here, I would say let's call it late 70s through um, mid 80s. And with this, basically, I actually, many years ago, I, a long time ago, it was probably close to 20 years ago, at a garage sale, I picked up a Commodore 64 in the box with the instructions. And I haven't really done much with it. I've programmed a little bit with it, I've played with it, but that's kind of going to be my oldest jumping off point, my starting point of, the Commodore 64 era machine. And I'm not sure what I really want to do with it, whether I want to pick up original discs, hardware. I really don't have anything with it. I don't have joysticks, I don't have games. It's just the keyboard. And eventually I'm gonna put some focus in on that and maybe do some drive emulation. There's a lot of really cool enthusiast stuff right now. New operating systems, things like that that are really cool that I'm not going to focus on right now. But with that, that's going to kind of define the earliest of what I want to focus on. So after that, um, what I really want to focus on is kind of the I would say mid 80s to very early 90s computer. So this is the computer that I I first experienced as a child. So mid 80s through early 90s. And with this computer, this is going to be this would be kind of designed for DOS, for Windows 3.1, that kind of era of computing before Windows 95 came out, where a lot of it was either 5 and a quarter inch floppies or diskettes, smaller diskettes, maybe early CD-ROM, maybe with that. But this machine is ideally, I would like to fulfill it with kind of a 386, 486 Intel processor. But currently, what I have, so I ended up acquiring a 286 computer. I thought it was a 386, but uh, took it apart and it was ended up being a 80286 computer. But the nice thing is that it not all is lost. I think it's really going to be a great jumping off point for CGA, EGA, kind of early VGA games from the mid 80s through the early 90s. So that's kind of what that's fulfilling right now. It's not the best example of that. I would say probably a 386 would be my ideal, but I'm going to go with what I have right now until I can, until I can serendipitously come across a 486DX machine to kind of then pass on my 286 to something else. But I think it's still a great jumping off point again for that era. All right. So with that being said, we're gonna then go to as this was kind of the era of where I started when I was a child and what I got exposed to, and then it kind of evolved into the mid to late 90s of gaming. So I'm gonna go ahead and label this mid 90s to early 2000s, and with that what we're going to do is we're going to cover our bases with a newer machine. I was kind of thinking of, okay, do I want to have a Pentium? Do I want to have a Pentium 2, Pentium all the way through the Pentium 4? Because early 2000s, you'd be covering probably with a Pentium 4 at best, probably. Maybe an AMD Athlon processor, which I was kind of an AMD kid for processors. But with that being said, I ended up one of the earlier retro gaming computers that I came across that I'm currently going through now is an IBM Net Vista machine, an A20 that has a Pentium 3 based Celeron processor in there. I believe it was around 600 megahertz. So pretty good. I mean, it scales back pretty well. Installed Windows 98 second edition on it. It's been pretty good so far. CD-ROM, diskette drive. It's actually got USB 1.0 on it. I think two ports. So I can file transfer stuff from my modern machine right here to this machine here. And this is kind of my midpoint here that I wanted to kind of focus heavily. I don't want to, because there was so much technology around this time that supported mid 90s, even obviously some early 90s DOS, to 2000, 2001, 2002. I don't want to go overboard by going and using the best examples of what came out around like 2000, 2002, because I really don't want to, morph it into what would be then this other category over here, which I will talk about in a second. So with this computer, uh, I'm currently working on it and I'm filming it now, but I have a decent sound chip in there, sound card in there, and I'm gonna be getting a little bit more out of it, doing a couple upgrades, as you'll probably see the tripod on the back there. Um, but I'm gonna be keeping it around the Pentium 3 era for that. It's gonna be a little bit faster than that, but we'll see how much of it actually disables for me for early 90s gaming. I don't I It's kind of interesting trying to cover an overlap between 286 and then Pentium 3. You're going to have some probably some incompatibility, some weird issues, some games that uh run too slow on a 286 but also maybe too fast on a Pentium 3. So I'll have to kind of play around with it, see what I can do around that. But ideally I'd like to have a machine that can kind of cover the whole most swaths of the mid 90s through about 2000 2001 gaming really well. And so hopefully we can do that with that. uh, and that being said, and this was kind of where I really cut my teeth on DOS gaming, Windows gaming, and really grew a passion for computers and for gaming. But to kind of segue into the next field here to go between. So we've got the modern gaming, 2022 gaming. That's you could do a lot with that. You could emulate, you can do old machines, VirtualBox. I don't want to do that right now. But in between the early 2000s, there's a lot of great games and examples of software that just are too they won't run on these early graphics processors of 2000 and it'll probably be overkill, or it wouldn't be era appropriate for modern gaming. So for right here, um, we're gonna go ahead and have, I'm gonna call it the late 2000 late aughts late 2000s gaming. All right. And now basically that now we're talking about the Windows Vista, Windows XP, Windows 7 caliber gaming, where you have, your um trying to think of it, your Unreal Tournament 2004, you're having your you know well, the Quake 3 would be probably mid 90s, early 2000s. That'd be totally fine covered there. But like anything else, the games for Windows Live, um, type era gaming, the Vista gaming, where you've got where it's getting into CD-ROM or DVD-ROM territory for games, and your Portal and your uh, Team Fortress 2, that kind of beginning era of uh, mid to late 2000s. Uh, I'm gonna do mid to late 2000, just to kind of add it in there, of gaming, just because to really kind of bridge the gap. And I already have a machine available for that that's running Windows, I think Windows 7. Yeah, Windows 7. And I really wanted it to bridge the gap to to use those CD installers, and it's kind of like the last era of physical media installation for PC, and I wanted to have a machine that was good for that. Like Sims 2, Sims 3, maybe at the cusp there. Those types of games. And then modern gaming, of course, this would be kind of my anchor point for everything. Everything is going to be the endpoint, all the games that through emulation, through whatever, I can run on this. But now I have an entire swath of overlapping machines that can handle different types of games on here. So with that being said, there was a subgenre of retro computers that I had not really thought about, but I started wanting to get into, and that is Mac gaming, so, or Mac computing, Apple computing. So I didn't really think about it until a few months ago, when I saw it pop up on my timeline of the old iMac G3 computer, the big colorful monitor, computer in a monitor, where I was like, well, let me look around at prices, because that machine brings back a lot of memories for me. I used that in high school for graphics class, and we used it for Photoshop. And again, I kind of that was really, I had used Apple II earlier, in school, and maybe some Performas and whatnot. I don't remember a whole lot of it. I just remember a lot of the some examples of the older Apple gaming and computing. But I really, my first day to day experience with Apple computers was really the iMac G3, and I kind of wanted to redeem the iMac G3, because it was kind of the bane of my existence at that time. I think it was just because the machines weren't set up very well, or I was pushing them too hard, whatever. But we kept having, ran out of memory issues. We were running, Photoshop and Adobe products then, and it was on an entire Mac maintain back end at school. So it really, it was a very good learning experience, and I had a lot of fond memories of it. But I wanted to learn more about it. The OS 9 experience, kind of going into OS 10 ish. So with that being said, I went ahead and I'll move this over. in a second, but I went ahead and actually picked up a iMac G3. So I'm just gonna label this late 90s Apple. All right. And with this, I wanted to again kind of experience the OS9 era, maybe OS 10, right around the turn of the century there, and again kind of redeem it for me. And I ended up finding a really great deal on an iMac G3, and hopefully I'll be able to make a video on kind of my experience with that and what it's doing now. But lastly, and this was kind of again very serendipitously, I'm going to push this out a little bit here. I also ran across, when I went to a thrift store, I ran across an example of a early to mid um, Apple computer. So it was a Power Mac G4 desktop. Um, so I'm gonna do, let's see, early to mid 2000s Apple. And this, again, I would say also OS 9, OS 10. Even though it was mainly OS 10 at that time, for what I was running, I wanna the machine I have both OS 9 and OS 10 on it as well. So this is more the power performance stuff where I can run things like kind of like the mid to like 2000s gaming on PC, not as great, but it's kind of in between the era there. So it can run things like Tron 2.0, stuff that was like 2004, 2005, UT 2004. It can run those things really great. So, for that being said, this is kind of my overall plan, my overall map of what I really want to aim for coverage in gaming. And the great thing is, I have a lot of great content lined up about revisiting that software, revisiting the games and stuff that brought me, from my childhood all the way up till now, because I have such a long history with PC gaming and a little bit of history of Apple gaming that I wanted to bring you along for the ride and rediscover as I'm going through. And I do have some B-roll. I do have some footage of what I've already shot as I've kind of run across some of this hardware or whatnot. And there's a lot that's yet to really be discovered and done yet. So hopefully you can check this out as I go along with doing this. So hopefully you have some fun with me in rediscovering this hardware and learning about it and making some mistakes and having some fun with it. So thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video.